This is the news on top of the hour.
Live from our studio in Georgetown.
Kaieteur Radio, 99.1 FM.
Good morning and welcome to this morning's newscast on Kaieteur Radio. I am Kevin Smith. Let's get to the news in detail. The bulk of the natural gas produced in Trinidad and Tobago has to be processed in some form or another and exported as liquefied natural gas, ammonia or similar hydrocarbon products, since the country's total electricity consumption only uses about 8% of its total production. In fact, the 100% reliance on natural gas for its electricity generation has also since left Trinidad and Tobago in a position where its production far exceeds its peak demand. Former Energy Minister Kevin Ramnarine disclosed that natural gas to electricity constitutes about 7 to 8% of all natural gas produced in the country. The bulk is used to make LNG, which is exported, and that LNG business has been the main pillar of Trinidad's economy for the last 21 years. And now let's tell you the Ministry of Natural Resources has concluded a third draft local content policy for the country, but will be re-engaging stakeholders before the completion of a final document, a time frame within which is still to be announced. The ministry made the announcement on Tuesday, some 2 years since the country started producing oil, and reported the general focus of the stakeholders' response to the draft document fixated primarily on the state of the current capacity of Guyanese businesses and skills. According to the ministry, the latest version of Guyana's local content policy came about through consultations held with some 180 public and private sector agencies and firms. And now let's tell you, while betting on Guyana as a winning proposition in light of its oil boom, its government must learn from the past experiences and failures of other oil and gas producing countries to avoid wastage of resources. This in order to remain focused on a strategy to minimize grift and encourage socially responsible practices that can lift a large portion of the population out of its dependence on remittances from the diaspora. The sentiments were among the most recent rounds of cautionary advice on the emerging oil and gas producing nation, this time coming from US-based finance professor at the Florida International University, Diane Butchie, and Jerry Haar, a professor of international business at the tertiary institution. And moving on, before any aspect of the intended multi-billion-dollar gas-to-shore project could be deemed a no-brainer, it is pertinent for it to be guided by the requisite studies conducted by government and not ExxonMobil subsidiary, ESSO. At least this is the view of Dr. Vincent Adams, former director of the Environmental Protection Agency. Many have argued that the government has been moving a bit too fast and should slow down, at least until a thorough plan or proper studies are conducted, since a location was identified prior to an environmental impact assessment being conducted. Vice President Barrett Jagdeo announced that 4 studies would be conducted. However, what was not disclosed by him was that it was ESSO conducting the studies. You are tuned into Kaieteur Radio 99.1 and 99.5 FM. This is your morning newscast. We will return after the break.
Digicel Prime Bundles just got better with 3 new apps. Watch more with PlayGo. Cheer more with Sportsmax. Read more news with Loop. Listen more with D-Music. Plus extra data. It's simply more bundled together. 51 gigabytes for 7 days for only $2,000. Live the experience with Digicel. Activate today on the My Digicel app.
Kaieteur Radio.
Covering Guyana from coast to coast.
Demerara and Essequibo, 99.1 FM.
Berbice, 99.5 FM. Kaieteur Radio.
Welcome back. Let us continue with the news. The National Agricultural Research and Extension Institute, or NARI, will get a $1.24 billion injection this year to further diversify the country's production base and ensure food security. The budget, which is $33 million more than what was allocated in the previous year, will allow for several agriculture distribution programs to rural and hinterland communities to not only be restarted, but also revamped. New ones would be added as well. Agriculture Minister Zulfikar Mustafa was quick to note that over 5,000 packets of seeds were distributed to small-scale farmers after restarting the seed distribution program in 2020, while adding that the government plans to double this in 2021 to benefit over 2,000 farmers. And moving on, in a default judgment, High Court Justice Sandra Cortez has ordered Vice President Bharat Jagdeo to pay $20 million in damages to former Minister of Communities Annette Ferguson for defamation. Last year, before demitting office, the junior minister filed a lawsuit against Jagdeo at the Guyana Times newspaper, claiming in excess of $20 million in damages for libel. The case against Guyana Times is still pending in court. However, according to the court order, the default judgment follows Jagdeo's failure to file a defense against the libel suit within the required time. Apart from $20 million in damages, Jagdeo was also ordered to pay $75,000 in court costs to Ferguson. A court order also stated that if Jagdeo fails to comply with the terms of the order, he will be held in contempt of court and may be liable to imprisonment or to have his assets confiscated. And moving on, a man who allegedly forged a court order and obtained $45 million from a Chinese national yesterday appeared in court and was placed on $350,000 bail. The defendant, Avery Grant, appeared in the Georgetown Magistrates Court before Chief Magistrate Anne McLennan. He denied both charges after they were read to him. It is alleged that between June 16 and October 2017, Grant conspired with person or persons to forge one order of the Supreme Court of Judicature, purporting to show that same order was made by Justice Jainarayan Singh, knowing the same to be forged. The matter was adjourned to April 14, 2021. And now let's tell you, a 40-year-old fisherman who was arrested for reportedly chopping a man several times about his body in the company of his brother following a row over money, was yesterday released on $300,000 after he was charged with attempted murder. The defendant, Joel Marks of Dartmouth, Essequibo Coast, appeared in the Mabaruma Magistrates Court before Senior Magistrate Sunil Scarce to answer to the charge. Marks was not required to plead to the charge, which alleged that on March 22nd at Kamaka, Northwest District, he chopped 27-year-old Christopher Bridge Mohan of Kamaka Waterfront. Magistrate Scarce then granted the man bail, and the matter was adjourned to May 18th.
Want value for your advertising dollar? Then place your ads on Kaieteur Radio's newscasts. Streamed live on 6 different mediums, reaching hundreds of thousands. Advertise today and watch your dollar grow. Call us on 225-8465.